So it's been a while since I've done that, and since we've done this, actually, I haven't shot in about 2 months now, nearly. So yeah, this is gonna be a long video. I'm warning you guys now. So get a cup of coffee or something to eat, or whatever you want, because this is gonna be long. So as a lot of you know, probably from Instagram and other social media, I've been ill for a while, and I feel like I've been saying that for the longest time now. But yeah, I've been ill for the last 2 months, and I was diagnosed with TB, and a lot has happened over the last 2 months, and I felt like I wanted to share that experience with you guys, like a kind of life update video, because I share all the good with you, so I thought I should also share the bad with you and what I've experienced over the last 2 months, because it's stuff that I've never experienced in my life before, and it's taught me a lot. So I'm gonna start way back in December. So around the beginning of December, when I did my last day in my life video. In that video, I don't know if you guys remember, but I was very tired after running, and I barely ran, like a very short run, and I felt really tired, and I just about started coughing.
So today's run was a bit of a struggle. Did about a 2.5 kilometer run, and it was a struggle.
And that's how I could track this, because that's when my cough kind of started. I'm not someone who goes to doctors for just like a cold and cough unless it gets like really bad. So at that point I was just like, yeah, you know, it's just a cough, it'll go, things like that. And also everybody was coughing at that point in Bombay, and I feel like in Bombay people are always coughing anyway, so you just think it's just a cough. And it got worse and worse and worse, and also at that point I was facing a lot of personal stress with my family about things, and lots of health scares, lots of things, and it was just like I was personally very stressed out already, and I thought, okay, it's the stress and just a cough, and you know, I should just like take it easy for a bit and I'll be fine. The cough kept getting worse, and I didn't really realize that it was just a cough, no fever, nothing else. And I thought, you know, yeah, I went on with work, went on with life, things were fine. Then my last video, which was a get ready with me video, which I shot on the 20th of December, because I know this because it was a friend's wedding that I attended, like one of my college friends' wedding. And at that wedding, everybody was like, oh my god, you've lost so much weight, you've lost so much weight. And you know, normally when you're a person who's thin, people say that to you a lot. Like, I've been the same size since I was 13, but every time I see people, they're like, oh my god, have you lost more weight, have you lost more weight? I'm just like, no. So I never pay heed to such comments because people keep saying it, so I never really thought much about it. I was just like, yeah, you know, whatever, I'm not well, but like, yeah. And that night is kind of, after that is when things got worse for me that weekend, because the video went up on Friday, and then that weekend the cough got really bad. Like I couldn't say 3 words without coughing. And I thought, okay, you know, I can't shoot, I can't work, whatever, let me take a few days off, get some fresh air. So I went to Alibag with my sister and the boys, and spent a few days there. And while I was there, it just kept getting worse, and I was doing everything, like the home remedies, like I was doing everything like 10 times a day. And then there was this one day when I was there, I started feeling very ill, so I started antibiotics, and the next morning I came back to Bombay to see the doctor, and he told me to take antibiotics for 8 days. And I thought, okay, you know, it'll get better, things like that. New Year happened, I was in bed sick, coughing away. And then around the first week of Jan, I went back to the doctor because I was still coughing, and I had finished my course of antibiotics, and he said, oh, you know, it's pollution, or could be this, that, and everybody in Bombay is coughing, as I told you. And he said, maybe, you know, it's you're getting asthmatic, and we'll give you a pump. And I was like, but I don't feel breathless, and I don't feel, you know, like, it's just this cough. And it was weird, because some days it felt like it was getting better, and then suddenly it would be like 10 times worse. And I just didn't understand what was happening to my body. So he said, okay, change my, you know, cough syrup and things like that. Said, give it 4 more days, and if you don't feel better in 4 days, then do a chest x-ray or regular blood work, and you know, come and see me and we'll see. And over the next 4 days, I was lucky to go see my friend Nandini, whose husband is a doctor as well. And he had seen me at the same wedding, so he was like, you know, you've been coughing for 3 weeks now, and you should just do a TB test also to rule out TB. And I didn't think much of it when he said it, because I also thought the same thing, that yeah, I should rule it out that I don't have TB, because we all think, okay, I could never get TB, or it's not gonna happen to me, or things like that. And I was like, yeah, okay, so I'm going tomorrow morning to do the rest. So he wrote down the tests for me, and I added those to the earlier tests, and I did them all. And I didn't think much of it. And my x-ray and blood work came back, and then I went to see the doctor, and the TB test takes a day, so it still hadn't come back. And when I told him, I said I've done the TB test, he was like, why would you do a TB test? You don't have TB. And like, it was just very, and I was like, okay. And then he pulled out my x-ray, and suddenly he went, oh. And that really like worried me, and I was just like, is something wrong? Like, should I be worried? And I was all alone. And so that's something I've learned not to do, because I tend to do things alone, and I like to be in control of my life. And I always like, I'm like, I don't need anyone to come with me. And Weber was shooting for his web series, so he wasn't around a lot, and I was staying here a lot at that point because I was sick. And I never take my parents to doctor and things like that. I think like, oh, I don't need anyone with me and stuff. So that was the first time I actually was like, oh my God, I wish somebody was here with me, because like, I'm worried now. He was like, no, it could be a fungal infection. It could be this, it could be that, or it could be TB. And I was like, okay. And he said, anyways, you send me the report when you get it tomorrow, and we'll figure it out. So I was like, okay. And consider seeing a chest specialist anyway, as for a second opinion. And that's the first time I actually got like worried, and I was like, okay, this is now scaring me. That afternoon I went to our house to see Weber, because he was back from his shoot, and I was very upset and very stressed out. And then I was like, oh my God, what if it's TB? What if it's TB? And he calmed me down, and he was like, no, you're just thinking too much into it. It's not going to be your and I still remember I went to open a lot of my parcels, because a lot of them had piled up. And just unboxing things got me tired. Like, I had to stop in like 15-20 minutes and like sit down and lie down. And Weber was like, just relax, don't do this right now, like, if you don't feel up to it, just relax and let it be. Simple things were really tiring me out, which normally didn't. Then I came back here that evening. The next morning around 9:30 in the morning, I got the report from the lab. Like, they emailed it to me. And it's weird, these TB reports, like, you can't really read them. Like, it doesn't really say positive for TB. So I kept reading the report, and I was like, I don't know what this is. And I sent it to WhatsApp it to the doctor. There was like a 2-3 minute window which I was waiting for him to respond, and I was literally like, I was holding my phone, and I was like, oh my God, like, I was flipping out. And I was sitting right here, sitting sideways like this, and I was like, oh my God. And he responded saying, it's TB, see a specialist immediately. And I just felt this wave, like I had been hit by a truck, and I just completely lost it. I was crying hysterically, and I called Weber when he was on set, poor guy, and I literally was like, oh my God, it's TB, I have TB. And I was howling, and he was just like, calm down, you need to relax, we'll figure it out, just figure out what chest specialist you want to see, and as soon as I'm done with the shoot, I'm coming there, and we figure it out. And calmed me down. And while I was on the phone, my dad overheard me crying and came in, and he was like, what has happened? And I was like, I've got TB. And he hugged me, and he was like, it's okay, it's totally curable, relax, and like, we figured it out, just calm down. And after that initial shock, it like kind of sunk in, and then I managed to get an appointment with a specialist that evening. I was really lucky to do that. And I had no idea about TB or anything. So the first thing I would tell anyone is, if you're coughing for more than 3 weeks and nothing else is working on you, get tested for TB, because we all think it probably won't happen to us, or and I was so upset, and I think that's because of the perception of the disease that we have. Yes, it's a fatal disease, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but it's curable. And I think the reaction I had was because everything I've seen about TB, and it's so scary, and it makes you like scared. And I was like, how could this happen to me? Like, I'm healthy, I work out, and whatever. And that I had no clue. So we met the specialist that evening. I met Weber at the hospital, and we went to see the doctor straight away. And the first thing he said to me is, why aren't you wearing a mask? You're really infectious. And I was like, okay, I didn't know that. And I was diagnosed with pulmonary TB, which is TB of the lungs, and that is the infectious one for everybody. You know, there's different types of TB, and all of them are not infectious. It's this one because, uh, and it's only infectious when you actually like cough or talk or sneeze. Like, it's not infectious by touch or sharing a towel or even sharing a toothbrush. And these are things I didn't know, like, you know, or that I should be wearing a mask. I had no clue. And I met him and I was feeling so upset and embarrassed that, oh my God, I should have been wearing a mask. And, you know, and he told us that anyone who had lived with me in the last 4 weeks should get an x-ray because I could have infected them. And I still remember walking out of the hospital and I was so overwhelmed, like I was pretty much in tears, and I was like, oh my God, what if I've infected my family and you? And I was just like, I don't want to, you know, I was so torn. Like, I was like, I don't know where to go. I don't want to go home because I don't want to infect Webber. I don't want to come here because I don't want to infect my parents. And it was a terrible, terrible feeling. And finally, he just, you know, he put me in a cab and he was like, just shut up, we're going home and you need to calm down. When we got home, Weber gave me this huge pep talk and he was like, you know, you need to just look into your health and you need to get better and you need to take your medicines, you have to eat well. And I have a few more days of my shoot left. After that, I'm going to whip you in shape and don't worry. And like, he was like a rock for me because I was completely, totally distraught at that point. And the next morning I came back here feeling much better because he was shooting for a few days and I thought, you know, I should be here. And I didn't want to stay here because my parents' room is right here. So I stayed in my grandfather's room, which where my grandfather lived, which was on the other side of the house because that's away from these rooms. And I shut myself into that room for like 4 days, and I got so paranoid about passing on this infection to my parents because they're old. They're also like, my mom has the worst immunity whatsoever, and I was just like, oh my God, you know, I don't want to give this to anybody. So I locked myself in that room. The first 2 or 3 days, I watched like full series of shows like in a day. Like, I just didn't leave that room unless I was using the loo. I ate my meals in the room. I kind of just shut myself out from the world, which was a terrible thing to do because I felt so terrible and lonely and so like my mind was just, you know, going nuts. And I just like was so like, I remember my parents coming to like the door to ask me something and I would just wave them away if I wasn't wearing my mask. I would put on my mask and be like, don't come here, I don't want to infect you. And I was just so like upset and scared. And I mean, and at that point I didn't really know because like I hadn't really read a lot about it and I didn't really know that, oh, if I'm wearing a mask, there's a very big chance that anyone's going to get infected. And I was just so paranoid about passing this infection. And they had just all done their x-rays and I was so scared because in Alibag I was actually sleeping with the kids in the same room for 2 nights. So I was like, oh my God, if anyone is infected by me, I'm gonna like, I don't know what I will do because it's just such a terrible feeling. And thankfully nobody in my family was like infected, and I was like, okay, this is like, that was a relief for me. And then I was like, I want to keep it that way, so I'm gonna try and stay away from everybody. And those 4 days, it was just like, all I did was watch shows, eat, read a little, write my journal, and yeah, that's it. And I was just like like I felt like I was in a box. Like, it was just, you know, like you can't go anywhere. Like, I wasn't even walking around the house because I didn't want to spread my germs when I coughed. I was just in the room. Like, it makes you think a lot, and like there's a lot of things we take for granted. Like, everybody says, oh, you know, don't take your health for granted and you can't do anything without good health, and those kind of things which we all believe, but we don't really think of them on a daily basis. Like, all that started just hitting me and I was like, okay. And at this point, just a few friends knew, and people who were like, you know, like speaking to my parents, family, things like that. Like, I didn't really like want to talk to a lot of people, so I just kind of shut myself out. As I was getting calls from people, you know, for work and things like that, people were like, oh, can you, and at that point I had no clue what was going to happen because the doctor told me he's going to see me in 2 months. And for those of you who don't know, TB is a really long drawn like disease in terms to cure. Like, your medication is like 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, so it's a long drawn thing. and I didn't know how long it's gonna take, and at that point I was coughing a lot, and like, so I still didn't know what was gonna happen. So I was just telling people that, like, it's, you can't really say you're not well, because people will be like, okay, yeah, but you'll be better in a week normally. So I was like, I have TB and I don't know what's gonna happen, so I don't know. And everybody's reaction was like, what, you have TB? Oh my god, oh my god, are you okay? Oh yeah. I don't think there was anyone who was like, oh, okay, all right, get well. So everybody was like really shocked about it. And after a point I kind of got fed up of doing that, because everybody's like, how did you get it? Oh my god, like, how could you get it? And like, um I just, in 3 days I was very like frustrated, and I just wanted to put it out there that I have TB, so that I have to stop saying the story to everybody. And that's when I posted the picture on Instagram, and I felt so good after doing that, because then it was out there and everybody knew, and I didn't have to bother with like, oh, like, now I have TB, and that whole angle. It was like, it's done, now it's there and everybody knows I have TB. At that point, like, this is when I started reading a lot about it. Now there's a good and a bad on the internet. I would say, if you read, like, you can read a lot of trash which plays with your mind. Like, I thought the TB drugs are really, really strong and they have severe side effects. Now I was lucky, and I mean, I am lucky to have faced only a few. Like, I get these strange rashes all over my body which come and go. So like, you get massive hives, different parts, which last for like a few minutes and then they vanish, and they're like really scary looking, but like, that's normal. And I have trouble sleeping, and I like face a lot of insomnia, and like, but people face really harsh side effects, like, going deaf and seeing like blurry vision, things like that. And I started feeling all those things, because there's a whole list they give you, that if you feel this, call the doctor, if you feel this, ignore it. And I started feeling like, oh, am I going deaf? Like, I was actually hearing ringing sounds, and I was like, Vaibhav, can you hear this? Or like, I was actually getting like, like unsure of myself. And then like, I had to be like, okay, you're overthinking this, you need to just relax and just like focus on eating well and getting better. And then Weber finished his shoot, and by then I had just convinced myself that I should be in that room by myself, because I can't infect anyone. And he saw me and he said, you're going nuts, you can't be like this, you cannot put yourself in this space, and you need to come home, and I'm going to look after you when my mom's back, and it's fine, you're not going to infect us, just relax. And then I went back, and Weber and his mom looked after me for like 2 weeks, like just feeding me. And he was just such a positive influence on me, I have to say. And you need someone like that in your life when you're going through something like this, because you don't feel positive at all. And I didn't feel positive at all. I was just like constantly in my head of, why did I get this, how did I get this, and it's actually the easiest thing to get, because someone just needs to sneeze around you or cough around you, and as you inhale that air, you could get it. I mean, yeah, of course everybody doesn't, because our natural immunity fights it, but in certain cases you get it, and I was one of those unlucky people. So I was home for 2 weeks, and so yeah, I wore a mask for 2 weeks, because you're contagious for 2 weeks, and after that the medicines work and you stop being contagious. And when I went back to our house, Weber and me, we played PS4. We had got a new PS4. Thankfully, someone had given it to us. So I bought a lot of games. We played PS4. We watched Netflix. He was just with me the whole time, just forcing me to eat, because I had lost my appetite and I wasn't really feeling hungry, but I had to eat. And I had lost about 5 kilos, which we found out when I went to the specialist, and he weighed me and he said, you need to put on weight and like eat well. And that's one of the things with TB, where they give you your drugs, your dosage is based on your weight. And if you increase your weight, it's a good sign that the medication is working. So yeah, I'm far from cured, and I don't know when I will be. And I've just been on the medication for a month, but I've already gained a kilo. Yeah, so like, he was like really, really instrumental in getting me better. And I still remember when my whole isolation, I mean contagious bit ended, he took me out for coffee, and I felt like, oh my god, like when you come out and you take this outside world in, and you're just like, oh, I felt like I'd been home for so long. For me, like, I realized and learned a lot of things through this period. A lot of people actually told me, oh my god, take out your nazar and do this and that. Honestly, I don't believe in nazar, and I don't believe in those kind of things. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and you have to learn from everything that happens. And I learned a lot over the last 2 months. Like, I've learned to value people more in my life. I've learned that, I need to take my health as, like, my health is my first priority, and I need to make sure that I'm always healthy. I was grateful for a lot of things. I was grateful that I could not work for 2 months and still look after myself and family and afford luxuries. And it made me realize, I was like, what about people who are not so privileged and they, have a disease like this? Like, if so many people have to share a room, they don't stand a chance of not infecting each other. And I'm lucky to have the treatment that I can get, or have separate spaces to live in, and all of those things, which, like, really make you uh, question a lot of things in your life. And that's kind of what happened to me, and I was very glad that it all occurred to me, because I mean, I kind of, towards the end of it, I saw so many things that I wasn't seeing earlier, and they made me think um, about things and be thankful about things in my own life, and um, change a few things in terms of my lifestyle and being healthier. So yeah, I mean, that all of that happened because of this. And and that's not where it ends. It's not the happy ending that you would assume. So my isolation or contagious bit was 2 weeks, and I said I'll give it another week to just take it easy, because I was very weak and things like that, and I will then come back to work and stuff like that. And about a week after that, last week I was ready to start work the next day. I still remember, it was like, I'm gonna start work tomorrow. Like, that was my thought process when I woke up. And I was sitting at my coffee table at home in the morning, cross-legged, and on the chair here, and the coffee table was here with my nuts and my tea and my bananas, like my breakfast every morning. And I was reaching out for, I'm not going to do it with this arm because I'm still too scared. I'm going to do it with this arm. But I was reaching out for my teacup to just start drinking my tea, and I coughed at the same time. So it was like a major, loud, major cough. And I was reaching out with my right arm, which is where I have the shoulder dislocation problem, and my shoulder dislocated. And I was stuck in that position because I was cross-legged, and then my arm was resting like this on the coffee table. And I called out to my mother-in-law, because Vaibhav had just left for the gym, and I screamed out to her, and she came in and she was like, oh my god, because she'd never seen anything like this. And she said, what can I do? Can I help you? And I was like, just call Vibhu, just call Vibhu, just call Vibhu. And she kept trying Vaibhav's number, and he wouldn't answer because his phone was silent, and he was driving to the gym, and he didn't realize we were calling. And because he wasn't answering, then I was like, okay, call my sister. And it's so weird because she, like, to get my phone to work, like, I was like, okay, yeah, can you hold it up, because to unlock it. And I was like this, like leaning, like literally like this, and then like she would unlock it, and then I was like, okay, now press this, now press that. And I finally called my sister, and I was like, oh my god, my arm is out and I can't, get in touch with Vaibhav. And she was like, okay, relax, I'll figure it out. And she hung up. And then by then, Vaibhav had reached the gym and called us back. And he was like, okay, I'm on my way back. And I'm like, okay. And it's been like 20 minutes or so by now. And I'm stuck because I couldn't get back. Like, I could not even put my feet down. I couldn't even move my fingers. Like, I was in such pain. And finally, Vaibhav got back. So this is maybe, say, 45 minutes into it, and my brother-in-law was on the phone with him, instructing him how to relocate my shoulder. And he tried, and I was screaming, like I was in so much pain, and I think like the whole building must have heard me, but couldn't manage it. And I was literally like, he was sitting in front of me, and I literally collapsed onto him. So I was like this, like this on him, and then I couldn't move because I was stuck again in that position. And so my brother-in-law was like, okay, wait, I'll come there. And then he came there. Then he tried, and they just stuffed my mouth with a towel so I wouldn't like scream. And I've never had to do that before in my life, but I actually thought I was going to pass out. And I was like, and it just at least straightened me out, and I was back to this kind of a position. And they were just like, you have to get up and we have to go to the hospital. So either we put the towel in your mouth and we carry you and you just bear the pain, or you walk and you bear the pain. What are you going to do? And I was so scared because I was in so much pain, but I was just like, okay, I have to do this. And I started thinking of people who break a bone and are stuck on a mountain, and then for 5 hours they're stuck in that position. And this ordeal went on for really long. So I call like we tracked Weber's first call, my first call to Weber, which was around 10:30 in the morning, and we finally finished with the hospital at 1:30 in the afternoon. So yeah, I was stuck with this arm for really long. Finally made it to the car. All through the car, Weber was like talking to me, and he's like, stay with me, and giving me sugar water to keep me up and keep my whole body was in a frenzy. Like I was white, like pale white. Lips were like gray, and my whole body was twitching. Like my teeth were chattering. My leg was just flipping out like this. Literally got to the hospital. It took 3 people, and in like 5 minutes they had relocated my arm, and I was just like, like that was the biggest like release of my life. Like I don't think I've ever felt pain like that, and I was just like wiped out. So imagine you've gone through TV for 3 weeks and then this happens. And I was just like, what is going on? And it was crazy because, again, it was like one little thing in your body and your whole body is out of whack. Like we were discussing this after, like as we walked out of the hospital, like imagine I walked out with a sling in my PJs, because obviously I was sitting in my pajamas at home, and that's how I went to the hospital, my chappals and my pajamas, and I'm walking out with a sling. And in 5 minutes, literally, I was out, walking out. And like before that, when they wheeled me in, I was just like this twitching, mad, broken person, like, and it's just one part of your body. If it's not okay, everything else is just nuts. So yeah, I was in a sling for a week. Finally, yesterday, took off my sling. My arm is much better, just a little sore, but I'm still not going all nuts with it yet because I'm worried about it. But yeah, eventually now this year I have to have surgery to fix my shoulder permanently, because this could keep happening. So yeah, another added element of 2019. Hopefully this year is going to end on a better note than it started. But yeah, that's what I've been up to for the last 2 months. So yeah, I have experienced things that I've never experienced. Probably the hardest 2 months of my life, honestly. The worst disease that I have ever experienced. The worst pain physically that I have experienced in those 2 hours, which I don't think I have ever experienced in my life. So yeah, a lot of new experiences, and they've all taught me various things. And the biggest thing I've learned is to not take your health for granted. Let people look after you. You can't always be in charge. I always had this thing of being like, I can do this on my own, I can do this. And sometimes it's okay to just take that backseat and be like, let people look after you and let people love you. And it feels amazing. And I have to say that I've been very grateful and thankful that my family, my parents, Vaibhav, my mother-in-law, everybody has looked after me so well, and brought me back to life. And yeah, I only think it's going to get better now. And also, if you guys are doctors, please comment below with tips for precaution for people to avoid TB, or symptoms, or how people should get tested, all those things, because I just feel like we don't have enough awareness in the country, and we really need more awareness. Also, there's this amazing TED talk by Dr. Zarir Udwadia, who's like the best in the TB space. I will link that here. It really opened my eyes up, and I was just like, wow, okay, we definitely need to do more about this disease. And there's so much that we don't, like, I would have never realized these things or looked into them if I wasn't affected by the disease. So yeah, also any NGOs that work with TB patients or do more for TB, I would love to work with you. Email me. And yeah, I really feel like we could stop this disease from spreading in our country, and we really need to do that. So yeah, let's do that. So guys, comment below with prevention tips, symptoms, your own stories. If any of you are TB survivors, please put in your stories and share them. Like, so many people actually emailed me and DM'd me, and thank you for that. Share your stories in the comments as well, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.